Welcome back to the channel, JL Wood Artistries. My name is Jordan Left of, and ironically, that's exactly where this nightstand's going, to the left of Emry's bed. It's amazing how that happens every single time. So ironic. I'll do better on the next one, I promise. This project took a long time to get completed with the delays in power outages and chaperoning a camping trip, with a trip to Texas for graduation get-togethers and soccer. Man, but you know what, it's done now, it looks good, I'm happy with it, and Emry loves it. And in fact, that's my favorite part of this build, was her painting on the back side of the nightstand. It's a way that she was able to customize it and personalize it, and just was a fun idea. And I'm happy to be able to share those memories with her on how we got this thing done. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks again for the support. And if you like this video, please consider sharing it with your friends and giving me a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted every time I upload a new video, and that way you stay up to date with what I'm working on next. Thanks again for watching. I do appreciate it. Until I catch you on the next one, please take care and stay safe. Goodbye.
I began by first taking apart this old assemble-yourself shelving unit that was left in our house by the previous owners. I figured I could reuse some of the parts for the nightstand. After disassembling the shelving unit, I began cutting some of the particle board down on the table saw, being careful not to cut into any of the nails or metal fasteners. Inevitably, I missed one on the underside of the panel. Luckily, my saw blade was not damaged, and I was able to continue using it. Next time, I'll be more careful and remove all the nails and fasteners. For assembly, I used pocket hole joinery. I didn't want the pocket holes to be seen, so I drilled them into the front-facing sides of the panels, and will later hide them with trim. Next, I went to work on the four legs. I used scrap 2x3s left over from the garage shelves I built last year. I ripped all four sides down on the table saw to remove the round over edges and to bring them all down to the same thickness. This also dressed up the boards and gave them a more finished look. The last step for the legs was to angle cut a small portion out of the bottom of each leg. This quick step really gave the legs a lot of character. I then used Type-On 3 wood glue and pocket hole screws to join the legs to the side panels. After ensuring the parts were flush at the top, I used clamps to hold the parts together while I added the screws. I use clamps anytime I can when using pocket hole screws to prevent the parts from shifting, which they have a tendency to do. Then it was back to the table saw with the remainder of the 2x3 scraps to make the rails, which are the horizontal parts that will connect the two side walls of the nightstand. I again ripped all four sides of the boards to clean them up and bring them all to a uniform thickness. I then used a jigsaw to cut a decorative curve into the bottom rails. And then cleaned up the curve on the belt sander. I drilled pocket holes into the rails and made sure they all faced the inside of the nightstand so they wouldn't be seen. I used a clamp to hold the parts together, checked for even spacing, and then screwed them into place. I repurposed some old furring strips and 1x boards for the top, trim, and drawer. The furring strips came from my brother-in-law's shop, where they were used to hold the insulation up to the ceiling. When he re-insulated his shop, he gave me some of the furring strips, as well as the old insulation, which I will be installing in my shop later down the road, when I have time. Or make time. Hopefully sometime soon. The furring strips were cut down on the miter saw in groups, and then ripped down on the table saw to bring them all to the same height. Then I ran them all through the planer to bring them down to a uniform thickness. I completed the glue up in 2 sections so they would fit in the planer again. Sometimes the strips will shift during the glue up, so running them through the planer again will get the surface smooth, much quicker than sanding will. I added clamps to both sides of the glued up strips to help keep them flat while the glue set up. After the 2 sections were planed down to the same height, I glued them together, again adding clamps to both sides of the tabletop to keep it flat. I sanded the top smooth with 120 grit sandpaper, and then again finishing it with 220 grit. Next, I used an OG bit in the router table and routed all 4 sides of the top to give it a nice decorative edge. I stained the top with Minwax brand English Chestnut that was left over from a previous project. I let it sit for a few minutes and then wiped off the excess stain. Finally, I finished the top with 4 coats of Minwax Satin Spar Urethane, sanding the top with 600 grit sandpaper in between coats. Next, I cut down the back of the Assemble Yourself shelving unit on the table saw to make the nightstand's back panel and drawer bottom. Then I began making the drawer. I repurposed some 1x material that was once used as baseboards in a local restaurant. I cut them down to size on the table saw. And then planed them down to a 1/2 inch thick. I used pocket hole joinery on the front and back boards of the drawer. The back of the drawer won't be seen, and the front of the drawer will have an additional drawer front installed to keep the pocket holes hidden. I cut a groove into the bottom of the front drawer board and side boards for the bottom panel to fit inside. The back drawer board was ripped down on the table saw so it would sit on top of the bottom panel. This way I could slide the panel into the grooves during assembly and add the back board last. The bottom panel was then brad nailed to the back drawer board to secure it into place. I added scrap plywood to the inside of the nightstand to glide the drawer when it opens and closes. I used a chamfer bit in the router table to give the edges of the drawer front a decorative touch. Then I clamped the drawer front onto the drawer, checked the alignment, and then pin nailed it together from the inside. Then I removed the drawer and added 2 screws from the inside to secure the drawer front. The drawer pole was made from a scrap furring strip. It was cut to size, sanded smooth, and then stained and finished in the same way as the tabletop. Next, I used the same 1x material from the restaurant for the trim. After milling the boards down, I added them to the side panels to hide the pocket holes. Off camera, I cut a groove into the inside of the trim where the pocket hole screws protruded from the side walls, so that the trim would sit flush. I used Titebond 3 wood glue and pin nails to attach the trim. I used more particle board from the Assemble Yourself shelving unit for the bottom shelf of the nightstand. I cut the bottom shelf down to size on the table saw and attached it with pocket hole screws from the underside of the shelf. Next came the fun part. I asked Emry if she would like to personalize her nightstand with a painting. Of course she said yes, as she loves to paint. She used various colors of acrylic paint, foam brushes, and paint markers and stencils to transform the back panel into her own custom art piece. Even though the art is on the back, it will always be a reminder of how this piece of furniture came to be and how we worked together to create this one-of-a-kind table. Emry signed and dated her painting once it was done. I then sprayed 2 coats of Minwax bar urethane to seal and protect the work. Then I added 3 coats of satin white paint to the entire nightstand. To attach the top, I first used a biscuit joiner to add a groove along the inside of the top rails of the nightstand. I slid the back panel into place and added brad nails to secure it. And it never fails, something usually goes wrong. I'll fix that later with wood filler, luckily it was on the back side. Then I used some Z-top attachment clips. They fit into the groove of the nightstand base and screw into the underside of the top. They should help prevent the top from cracking, as they can slide across that groove as needed when the top expands and contracts with seasonal changes. And with that, the nightstand was done. Hopefully this project will inspire you to make your very own piece of furniture and maybe repurpose materials to give them new life and save some money in the process. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel. As always, thanks for watching, and until I catch you on the next one, please take care and stay safe. Goodbye.
Well, there goes the power. Well, I guess I'm done for tonight. Boy, it is really raining out there.